Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're solving for divisors. So we will be given an integer array nums and want to return the sum of divisors of the integers in the array that have exactly 4 divisors. And if no integers in the array have 4 divisors, then we can just return 0. So if we look at these examples, in the first example, only 21 has 4 divisors, which is 1, 3, 7, and 21, and the sum is 32. So that's why we return 32. And in the second example, we have 2 21s. So the sum of that would be 64, because 32 plus 32 is 64. So we return 64. And in the last example, none of these have 4 divisors, so we return 0. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. So to solve this problem, we can use a nested for loop. The first for loop will be to check all the number in nums, or in other words, the first for loop will be to loop through all the number in nums. And the second one would be that within each number in nums, we want to check if there are 4 divisors. And rather than looping from 1 to that specific number, we actually only need to loop to the square root of that number to find its divisors. And if the number does not have a square root, then we will take the floor of the square root of that number. And if there are 4 divisors, then we will add the sum. And in the end, we will return the sum of divisors of all the numbers that have 4 divisors in the array. And there will be a small edge case where, let's take 9 as an example. 1 times 9 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9, but 3 will only count as 1 divisors rather than 2 divisors. So when we take the sum, we only add 3 once and not twice. So this D right here would be each divisor that we will try within the numbers, and divisors will keep track of the number of divisors. Temp will keep track of the sum, and if divisors turn out to be 4, we can add that to result. So let's go over this example real quick. So first we try 1. 1 times 21 is 21, so we can add 1 and 21. That's 2 divisors. 1 plus 21 is 22, so we add 22 to temp. We can try 2, but 2 is not a divisor, so move to 3. 3 times 7 is 21, so we can add 2 more divisors. And 3 plus 7 is 10, so we add 10. Now temp is 32, and we come to 4. It's not a divisor. And now we have come to the floor of the square root of 21. We can add 32 to result and move on to 4. And as we move on, we need to reset divisors and temp to 0. 1 times 4 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So we add 5 to temp, and that's 2 divisors. 2 times 2 is 4. That's only 1 divisor. So we only add 2 to temp and add 1 divisor. And now that we have come to the square root of 4, we realize that's not 4 divisors. So we don't add it to the result. And we move on to 7, reset divisors and temp to 0. 7 times 1 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8, so we add 8 to temp and add 2 divisors. Come to 2, 2 is not a divisor, and we have come to the floor of the square root of 7. And now that we have come to the end of the array, we can return 32 as our result. And the time complexity will be O of n log m, where n is the number of elements in the array, because that's the number we'll iterate through in the first array. And m would be equal to the largest number in the array, because that would be the maximum number of iterations that we have to iterate through. And it's log n because we're only iterating to the square root of that number. And the space complexity would be O of 1, because the space that these variables take up will not depend on the size of the input. So now let's get to the coding part. So first we will initialize result to 0, and now we will set up the first for loop. So for num in nums, temp is equal to 0. Divisors, we will also set it to 0. And now we will look through the potential divisors. So for D for divisors in range 1 to the floor of the square root of number plus 1. And if it has no remainder when we divide by D, then we want to check if num divided by D is equal to D. If they're not equal, then we will add the divisor and number divided by the divisor, and we will add 2 divisors. Otherwise, if they are equal, then we will only add by D and only add divisors by 1. And then in the end, we will check if divisors is equal to 4. If it is, then we will add result by temp. So result plus equal temp. And finally, in the end, we will return the result. Let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. Thank you all for watching. Hope this was helpful. If you have any other comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section, and I hope to see you all again soon.